Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be reviewing part 2 of The Mark of the Rani. I really like this story. In my review of part 1, I really praised it a lot, and it lives up to that. Part 2 is really good. I was worried the first few minutes into part 2 that it wasn't going to live up to part 1, but it does. It's really good. The guy playing Stevenson, I don't know what's up with his voice. I'm not familiar with this historical character. And I don't know what kind of accent that is he's supposed to be doing. And I adjusted to it as time went on, but I couldn't tell what he was saying half the times at the beginning, the Stevenson character. He's just talking, and I'm like, I don't know. I adjusted that over time. I felt really bad for Luke, because after Luke leaves the first time, and Stevenson's going on, oh, he's a great guy, he's awesome, good, he's going to go far. I'm like, uh-oh, Luke's in trouble. He's getting awfully praised here for an extra we've just met. He's in trouble. And sure enough, he gets hypnotized and, tricked into doing the master's bidding. And I'm like, I knew that was coming. And then he gets turned into a tree. But to his credit, he saves Perry. Even as a tree, he saves Perry. If you're sitting there going, he turns into a tree, you have to watch it. But he does save Perry. He gets that one little act of redemption there when he saves Perry. I like the little landmines that turn meat life into vegetation life. That's interesting. I like that. I like the performances out. This is one of my favorite Colin performances because, he's not over the top in a way that bothers me, like sometimes with his performances. He's a little more subdued here, and when he's very expressive with his facial expressions, which I'll get to in a second, but not in a way that hinders the story, because he does have this very theatrical acting style that rubs me wrong sometimes, but he's very on point here. I really love his performance in this story. My favorite moment of the story is when he's in the Rani's TARDIS, and the Rani and Master have come in while he's hiding, and they leave again, and he gets ready to do some sabotage, and he walks out and looks at her TARDIS console, and he pulls out something like a screwdriver or something, and he gets this smile on his face. And that smile he gets on his face could be my favorite Sixth Doctor moment ever. Because it's like, oh, I get to sabotage something. It's like the smile an 8-year-old gets as they're taking their NES apart so they can try to figure out how it works. And it's not going to end well. It is this childlike smile. I absolutely love it. Because it's like, how Matt Smith can have that childlike quality to his Doctor at times. You don't really think of that with the Sixth Doctor. But for that moment when he does that smile, I see the little 5-year-old in him that's like, It's my favorite part of the whole episode. I just love that smile he does. I can't rave about it enough. And then when he leaves the TARDIS afterwards, outside in the mine shaft, he still has that smile on his face. I love that smile. It's just, oh man, easily my favorite part of the episode. That's some good acting on Colin's part right there, without even saying a word. I love the Rani's TARDIS too. Of course, I've seen the interior from Time in the Rani. I like her TARDIS because unlike most of Doctor Who, it remembers that the Doctor doesn't have the most advanced TARDIS. I always hate when other TARDISes look like the Doctor's TARDIS. And I get in Classic Who they did that with the Master's TARDIS because of budget stuff. But even in the modern series, a lot of other TARDISes look kind of like the Doctor's TARDIS. As much as I love Joe Martin's TARDIS, it's really awesome. It still looks a lot like an updated version of the classic TARDIS, or whenever the Doctor and the Timeless Children goes into other TARDISes, they look kind of like that. And it looks like it could be a more advanced version of the Doctor's TARDIS, but it still looks a little too much like his TARDIS. I like the look here with the Rani's TARDIS, where you can tell it's an updated TARDIS, because people seem to forget sometimes that the Doctor's TARDIS is a very outdated model. It's the only Type 40 left. I think it's in Deadly Assassin it mentions that. That's the only Type 40 TARDIS left. All the others were recalled, destroyed, etc. Decommissioned, basically. So he has the only one left. Basically, he's driving the 1994 Corolla that's somehow still on the road and working for some reason. It's the only one left. He's not driving the 2022 Corvette. So the Rani has a much better TARDIS. It looks really nice. I like the time rotor or whatever it's called, how it's the little circles. That looks neat. I like the way the walls look. I like how she operates it without actually touching controls. She can just wave her hands over portions to make it work on parts of it. That's pretty cool. And again, it's more round, a lot like Tennant and Eccleston's TARDIS. Instead of having that hexagonal shape, it's completely round like we would see Tennant's TARDIS be later. That's a neat little touch. I really like her TARDIS interior. It looks really sharp. And you kind of get that impression that the outside of the TARDIS is what her TARDIS actually looks like, because it has the working lights. Like, it's not disguised. That's just it. Really liked her TARDIS. The location work continues to impress. I mentioned that in my review for part 1. I really like the location work for this story. Sarah, the director, Sarah, does a really good job directing this story. I really enjoy a lot of the location work. The transition from location to studio, while noticeable, isn't glaringly noticeable or jarringly noticeable. The transitions between them work really well. It's very impressive. I really liked how well the story was directed. The incidental music is still really good. It's not quite. It doesn't quite bowl me over in the way part 1 did, because I love the incidental music in part 1. The incidental music is phenomenal. The opening incidental music and the cliffhanger incidental music. The incidental music in part 2 is still good. It's just not quite as noticeable to me. Maybe it's because I was just adjusting to it since I watched part 2 just a few minutes after I watched after I reviewed part 1. So maybe I was just adjusting to it more. I really like that one shot too in part 2 with the spider web, or like it shows a close-up of a spider web and then it focuses out and focuses on Colin walking into the shot. It's when he's about to walk into that area of the forest and he's like, "Step into my parlor," said that, "Nah." And he realizes something's not right and that it's a trap, because that's when the Rani set the little mines that turn people into trees in it. And he caught on to that. Something didn't feel right. So I like the fact he catches on to that. And then, of course, we see Luke get turned into the tree. I feel bad for Luke, because he's a good guy that basically got manipulated into doing bad stuff because he got hypnotized by the Master. But at the end, as the tree, he manages to save Perry when she walks in, and he manages to grab her, or grope her, depending on how you look at it, the way he grabs her. But he still manages to save Perry's life. I love Colin's acting when he knocks down the tissue compression device, whatever it's called, the TCE, I think Colin calls it. When he sneaks up and knocks it out of the Master's hand, and then he gets it and holds them basically at gunpoint. This is not something we see the Sixth Doctor do. We see him arrogant and angry and snapping at Perry, but he's like deadly serious here. It's this very Peter Capaldi vibe, or Christopher Eccleston vibe, or even Tennant or Smith when they're angry, when they're enraged. But I really think of it more like Capaldi and Eccleston when you're on their bad side. You know, normally the Doctor, if he's got somebody at gunpoint, you can just sit there and he'll be like, "I'll do it." You can just be like, "No, you won't, Doctor. You're not going to kill me. Just put it down. Don't embarrass him." But this is one of those moments when Colin's acting right here is phenomenal. And where you're just like, oh, crap, he might. Especially considering it's the Rani and the Master and Perry's in mortal danger. Where he's like, "You know what? You're going to help me." And he basically forces the Rani to go down there. And she's not one to put herself in danger unless she has to go down there and show Perry how to get out of the minefield. And I like when the Master's like, "What if she doesn't make it?" And then the Doctor's just like, "Oh, then you're up for understudy." I love that. This is some of the best performing I've ever seen Colin do in the show. I really like him in this story. And in that scene, the way he plays those scenes is deadly serious in this. I'm sitting here going, 6 or 12 is showing. It has that Capaldi, Capaldi's Doctor very much has that "Am I a good man?" where he straddles the line, especially early on in his run, like Series 8 Capaldi, you don't quite know which way this Doctor will jump. And right here, in this moment, in that scene, when the Doctor has them at gunpoint, I feel that same way about 6, where if there's ever a moment where 6 could go dark, and kill somebody, it's right there. And that's really good acting on his part. The guy playing Stevenson, I wasn't too keen on because I can't. The actor is fine, but that accent he's using, I'm not very familiar with that historical figure. But his accent, it took me a while to understand what he was saying. Like there were times early on in the story he'd be talking, and I'd just be like, I wasn't quite sure what he was saying. But as the story progressed, I adjusted to it and I could make it out better. I still like the older guy, the one that like is the landowner. I like him. He has this very authoritative control. The actor and the character do a really good job, so I like him a lot. The incidental music, again, continues to impress, as I mentioned already. Not quite as much as part one, but it's still really good. It sounds very different than 80s, most of 80s Who to me, which I really, really like. The location, it has a lot of location work. I watched the behind the scenes thing where they did get to do a lot more location work. I think the story really benefits from that. I love the location work, and the camera work looks really good for the location work. And as I mentioned in part one, the remastering for the Blu-ray, the colors really pop on this. They have really good, they're very vibrant. That's the word I'm looking for. They're very vibrant, and I really, really enjoy that. Kato Mara is great in this, which I love Kato Mara in Time of the Rani. She's one of the best parts of Time of the Rani, but she's really good in this. I like her outfit better in this with the leather pants. Kato Mara's right at home with some leather pants. I like that outfit she's wearing. It's just, I don't know, that's kind of the default way I think of Kato Mara. That's just like a perfect look for her. And you can tell she enjoys it. Like if you ever watch some of her interviews about it, you could tell she just had a ball both times she played the Rani. I enjoyed that. Again, I'm not as keen on Perry. Perry doesn't bother me as much in this episode. I'm just not a big fan of Perry's character in general. It's nothing against Nicola Bryant. She's great. It's just Perry I've never really got into. But again, this could be my favorite performance of Colin. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that jump out at me. I really enjoyed this one. The ending is good. I love, again, how he sabotages the TARDIS and tricks them. And that camera work that's used at the end, like when they're in the TARDIS and they're being sent off, you know, after he sabotaged it, the camera's doing this weird kind of stretchy thing. It works, you know? The way both of the actors are doing the old school, and they're sitting there slowly. I like the fact it doesn't happen all at once. It gradually, the force increases and you see them more and more getting pulled up against the wall with a baby T-Rex growing. And the camera's doing that. And all of that combines to create a really neat effect to end their story on. And it just makes you wonder, per usual with the Master especially, how did they get out of that one? And the Doctor like, well, I may have tinkered with the TARDIS a bit while I was in there. I very much enjoyed that. And as I mentioned, the studio scenes and the location scenes transition pretty smoothly. I like that. I love that there's so much location work. I love that. And I have seen on the behind the scenes where they did get extra time with it because they basically had a free film crew. That's pretty cool. I wish more of Doctor Who would have had that. Probably one of the reasons why I like Spearhead from Space so much, since it's basically all location. And classic Doctor Who could do location work really, really well. So yeah, this is one of my favorite Colin stories, I think. It's really good. We don't see Colin do historicals much. Is this his only historical? I mean, it's not. I know it's not a pure historical. It's what is it? A pseudo historical, I think they call it. But I think this is the only one where he's like really in the past like this. I think this might be his only historical. I think, and I like it. He's good in it. So yeah, I really, really like the Mark of the Rani. I'm sure there's 50 things I'll think of I meant to say as soon as I get done filming. It's just how that works. But I liked this one a lot. It is, I think, Pip and Jane Baker's best script. I think Pip and Jane Baker really don't get enough credit for their Doctor Who work because, especially their other two stories, there's so much baggage going on behind the scenes that they're having to contend with. Time in the Rani has so much production problems going on with that story. We're talking about a story that was written for the 6th Doctor and is performed by the 7th Doctor. So many rewrites had to go in that, where even Pip and Jane weren't happy with the end product of Time and the Rani. And then there's that whole thing with The Ultimate Foe Part 2 and Bob Holmes passing away and Eric Sayward leaving in anger, and then just having to come up with whatever they had to do on the fly with no idea where it was supposed to go. And this one, Mark of the Rani, is the only one where I feel like they got to do what they wanted to do, like where they wrote it and then tweaked it as necessary, but what they wanted is what ended up basically on the film. This is probably the only one of their stories that was really true to their vision of the story, because the other two had so much behind the scenes stuff going on. And I feel like since they only have those 3 stories, they get a lot of flack that's undeserved. I know a lot of people crap on their dialogue. I actually really like the Baker's dialogue. I think they're well written. I think some people think it's a little wordy, but not like for me, it doesn't come across. Some people are wordy just because they want to sound intelligent. You've met some of these people where they use the big words when they don't need to. They're only doing it to sound like they're the smartest person in the room. This never comes across to me as like this. It never feels pretentious. They just strike me as 2 writers who are well versed and well educated, and so they're writing big words because they expect you to be able to keep up. And I think most people can. I think most of the people who complain are just people who can't keep up, to be honest. I find their dialogue very well written most of the time. So I actually enjoy the wordiness of their dialogue, personally. So Mark of the Rani, easily my favorite Pip and Jane Baker story, going by the end results. A lot of fun. Possibly my favorite Colin Baker performance. Possibly just for that smile of his alone when he's getting ready to sabotage the TARDIS. It really does have that, if I do it, I get a whooping. I do it. Look to it, just that mischievous. That's probably my favorite Colin Baker moment. Just that grin he gets on his face. That I absolutely love it. So, the Mark of the Rani, what do you think of it? Comment down below and let me know. I always enjoy hearing what do you guys think. Other things to do, go ahead and click that like button and that subscribe button. That helps me out with the YouTube algorithm, and I certainly appreciate all the help I can get with that, as any YouTuber will tell you. I also have a Patreon. If you really like what I do and would like to contribute to what I do, there is a link to that down in the description below with several different tiers to choose from that offer different rewards. So if you have a moment, check that out. I have updated it recently. I also have a P.O. Box. If there's anything you would like to send me, that's down there as well, as is a link to my Amazon wish list, which I update regularly. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.